We have some big news across WWE and AEW, and as always, I'm going to put timestamps in the description down below. We're going to kick things off with some Drew McIntyre news. This will likely be the last time that I talk about Drew McIntyre unless something seriously shifts in the story. So for those who don't know, there's been a ton of talk, there's been a ton of narratives being spun that Drew McIntyre hasn't really been happy in the WWE, that maybe Drew McIntyre wanted to go to AEW, and all of this different stuff. And if you guys follow wrestling, if you guys follow this channel in the last few years, we have seen this happen quite a bit, right? We saw the same thing being said about Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. We saw a lot of weird reporting with Cody Rhodes. We even see a lot of weird reporting with CM Punk. But the reality is, it appears that WWE may actually have different plans. Now, a variety of sources have talked about this, but there was something that was very interesting. Dave Meltzer did talk about McIntyre being back shortly, as soon as the company is hopeful of getting him to return for Money in the Bank. Now, there has been a ton of talk about Drew McIntyre coming back to the WWE just based on creative alone. WWE doesn't seem to have an issue with giving him more money, but the one thing that was interesting about what Meltzer was saying was the fact that it's about Money in the Bank, because previously the conversation has been more so about SummerSlam. Now, there are going to be more returns and more debuts that are going to be happening in the future, and I will talk about that in a separate video. But obviously the reason why I'm bringing this up, really more than anything, is because Money in the Bank is a very pivotal time for WWE, especially because you have somebody like LA Knight or Damian Priest or Logan Paul. I mean, there's a lot of people that could potentially win Money in the Bank. You have to wonder if Drew McIntyre will in fact return as a heel. If he returns as a heel, you can have this big match between Finn Balor and Seth Rollins, and personally speaking, I would like to see this as the co-main event, right? I would like to see the men's ladder match open up. I would like to see WWE not waste any time. Whoever wins Money in the Bank should take advantage if Drew McIntyre comes out as a heel and destroys Seth Rollins. I would cash in right away. Now, WWE probably won't do that, right? WWE would probably do a cash in at SummerSlam, which I'll be in Detroit. I've been in the arena before when there's a amazing cash in. I've seen it before with my own eyes. Now in a stadium with like thousands and thousands of more people than a regular arena, I would totally be down for WWE to do a cash in at SummerSlam. But if that's the case, I think you might as well just hold off on Drew McIntyre's return until SummerSlam, because I feel like that would be a bigger moment. But nonetheless, I think if they don't do that, I'd be totally okay with it. I think Drew McIntyre coming in as a heel makes a lot of sense, and that's where we could probably expect him to go. Guys, WWE, very excited about what's been happening with NXT. Obviously, NXT is pulling off a lot of improvement. A lot of people are watching NXT. A lot more people are more receptive to NXT. We know that WWE has a lot of great plans for NXT, and now Meltzer is talking about more major stars working in NXT. And the one big one that a lot of people seem to be talking about right now is Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler, which makes a lot of sense because they do hold the WWE Women's Tag Team Championship belts. Now, keep in mind, they are going to be competing against Isla Dawn and Alba Fire on SmackDown tonight, June 23rd, for the title unification match, which I believe is happening tonight. If I remember correctly, it is happening tonight. But WWE is having that match. They're unifying the tag titles. I don't see a situation where Rousey and Baszler drop the belts this soon. With that being said, though, I think the reason why this is such a good thing is because Seth Rollins going to NXT was great. But think about the logic of the Women's Tag Team Championship belts to begin with, right? They were actually created to be defended on all three brands. And, you know, NXT doesn't really have this massive women's tag team division. But in the event that they want to have these people get the rub from working with Ronda and Baszler, it makes a lot of sense for them to occasionally show up on there. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to do a big thing where every week they're there. And the reason why you don't want to do that is because WWE hasn't really established a women's tag team division in NXT. There are a couple teams out there, but I do like the idea of Ronda Rousey and Baszler going to NXT once in a while. Ronda Rousey is somebody who, you know, realistically, it's going to be interesting to see how the crowd reacts to her. But I think Ronda Rousey is a hell of a talent in what she does in her role. And I think her character, you know, obviously things can have improvement when you look at the booking and when you look. I think a lot of people are making personal judgment on Rousey based on the way that they've booked her, right? And I think that's not fair. But I think this women's tag team championship stuff could definitely improve not only the division, but hopefully eventually it could get WWE to book her in a big feud that doesn't involve a women's championship. And I'm just going to throw out the idea, why not have Rousey and Shayna Baszler feud with each other, right? Like, that could be something really cool. I know people hate the idea of tag teams splitting up and feuding with each other, but with the women's tag team division, I just think it makes a lot of sense, so why not do it? And that's going to lead us to our next topic of today's video. Guys, this is where the drama really picks up. I really hope you listen to this thoroughly. Before we talk about the serious thing that happened at Dynamite last night, well, 2 nights ago, depending on when you're watching this, there was a very interesting thing that's been brought up to my attention. Dave Meltzer has reported that the Elite have been asked to stay quiet regarding their contract status. Meltzer wrote, "All have kept quiet as asked, or in some cases signed legal papers basically prohibiting them from talking, which could lead to immense frustration with the situation. The Elite are being silenced. And when I tell you guys the big story after this one, you're going to be curious as to why. The issue here is that AEW has 4 potential top free agents. And I know they are the heart and soul of AEW. And I do believe that the Elite have been... I feel like in a way, this whole situation between CM Punk and the Elite, regardless of what's accurate, regardless of what's not accurate, that part actually doesn't matter in this case. I see a lot of people on social media talking shit. They're picking sides. They're talking shit against the Elite. They're taking personal attacks against Punk. A lot of people seem to be judging the character. Not like their wrestling character, but them personally, right? Like their personal characters. And a lot of people seem to be judging them in this regard. And I feel like it's actually been really unfair because nobody really knows exactly what happened. But this idea that they're going to be keeping quiet actually makes for it to become worse. Because if they're keeping quiet on this situation, they can't defend themselves from what people are saying about them publicly. That's the first thing. But also, with their contract status, we don't know anything about their contract status. We know that early 2024 is like the reported time. But as far as the Elite, who stays, who goes, is this all creating suspense? And the reason why I bring that up is because apparently, a top AEW star had to walk out of AEW in a bad mood because of CM Punk's return. Dave Meltzer reported that one top star in the promotion is fearful of the ticking time bomb regarding the issues leading to another incident. One top name told us that they went home after the show on Wednesday in a bad mood, and even with the key people being apart and not on the same shows, described the fear of this being a ticking time bomb that will not have a happy ending. Now, keep in mind, the Elite weren't there. They did pre-tapes. We know CM Punk was there. And we know CM Punk and the Elite will both be backstage at Forbidden Door 2. We know Tony Khan is already on record saying that he's hyping up Forbidden Door 2. There's something that's going to be monumental, something that's massive, something that's going to happen that's going to lead to a very, very massive AEW All-In. You have to wonder what is going on here. But the Elite can't talk about their contract status. They're not allowed to talk about this issue. CM Punk is supposedly not allowed to talk about this stuff. But now you got talent walking out over this. And like I say, I take everything with a grain of salt because I just believe that every report as time keeps going and on and on and on, I just kind of feel like this has led us to believe that it's still a work. But let's say it's not a work, right? Let's just say it's not, because it's not a big deal if it is or if it isn't. I don't feel like you're smarter for guessing if it is. I don't feel like you're dumb if you don't think it is. You know what I mean? But let's just say it's not a work. You would have to think somebody's leaving this company. And I can't help but think maybe it's Kenny Omega. If that's the case, right? Maybe that's why they can't talk about their contract status. I don't know. It's kind of fun playing with the idea of thinking about Kenny possibly being in WWE or going back to New Japan, but then New Japan and AEW are together. I mean, we'll see. We'll see. But the idea that somebody walked out because they're afraid, none of this adds up to me, man. None of this adds up to me. But if that's truly the culture backstage, I hope somebody gets control of that and fixes that up, because nobody should be in that environment.